The study that we are going to tell you about today was part of a much bigger mini labs project that was called TISP, T-I-S-P, or Trust in Science and Science-Related Populism. In this big global study, we focused on how people around the world trust scientists and to what extent. The study has once again shown that really globally around the world, trust in scientists remain high. What was particularly interesting for me from the big study is that people around the world want scientists to communicate. More than 83% of respondents said that they wanted scientists to communicate more specifically with society. And so in a follow-up study that sort of linked to the bigger study, we focus specifically on those scientists that are good communicators and therefore visible in society. And in this follow-up study, we specifically focused on Germany and South Africa. And I'm now going to ask my partner in this specific study, Simone Rödder, to tell you more about that.
So yeah, let me briefly talk about what we wanted to find out in this follow-up study. There's an academic interest in scientists who regularly appear in the media, and this interest dates back quite some time to a seminal book written by Ray Goodell, an US American scholar, in 1977. She entitled this book and her study Visible Scientists. Goodell characterizes these visible scientists with a number of distinct characteristics, and among them is first that they have an established scientific reputation, but also that they are usually colorful, articulate, and controversial. And if you hear this may sound like some media-related characteristics that these scientists, these visible scientists, share with other kinds of celebrities. So what's special about the fact that in this case, the celebrity is a scientist? How many and what types of scientists fall into this category? And what are the peers, the scientific communities, and the public's expectations towards this social role of visible scientists? And talking about non-traditional publics implies that there is a traditional public as well. And it is well established in the sociology of science that scientists, for and foremost, care about the recognition of those who have the same background and work on the kind of same phenomena and issues. But there has, as of yet, not been any study of the public's perception of and expectation towards visible scientists. And this is what we want to address in this study here. And furthermore, what we also wanted to do, because that has also not been done before, is to do a comparative study of the public's expectations. And for this, we chose a global South country, namely South Africa, and a global North country, namely Germany. And I think Marina will now tell a little more about the methodology that we used.
So the data was collected via online surveys. It was done in German for the German respondents and in English for the South African respondents. The data was collected in February 2023. In addition to many questions that people had to answer for the bigger global study, we then added a few extra studies specifically for the participants in Germany and South Africa. In the first place, we asked them a very, very simple question. Please name up to 3 visible living scientists that are currently or from your country. And then we also asked them to think about visible scientists a little bit more and how they would characterize them, how they would describe them. And then we asked them, what do you think makes a visible scientist trustworthy? So Simone, tell us a little bit more about the findings, please.
Yes, so as Marina has just said, we asked an open-ended question, please name up to 3 living visible scientists in your country. A majority of respondents in both countries did not come up with a single name. They either left the field blank or they wrote answers such as, I don't know, or I hardly know any by names. I would describe them as invisible. So our data clearly indicates that for representative publics in Germany and South Africa, scientists as individuals are rather invisible. And what was also very visible in our data was the point in time when we did the study. So it was done in February 2023, and virology as a discipline dominated, especially the German data, but was also very high up in the South African data. So it was very clear that people had in mind those scientists who had been in the news quite a bit in response to the pandemic. So for instance, in the German data, more than half of the valid responses were for just this one single scientist, Christian Drosten. So what we can conclude here is that in times of high media attention, such as the COVID pandemic, where scientists were unusually visible in general, it is not that this visibility is democratized and that very many become visible, but the difference between some visible scientists and many other scientists becomes even greater. Then with regard to the question of what does the public actually expect from visible scientists, this was very interestingly, I talked about Godel's list of characteristics, and we actually probed for this list in our questions. And as much as with the peers, with the public, the most expected criterion is a good scientific reputation. And then our second question was, what do you think what makes a scientist trustworthy? And for this research question, we found that the respondents' open-ended statements mostly agreed with established trust dimensions, such as expertise. So this again goes back to the scientific reputation, but also integrity, benevolence, transparency, and dialogue. And then the quantitative data on this question revealed that the more the respondents trusted scientists, the more they think and they expect visible scientists to have a good scientific reputation, to be charismatic, to be articulate, and to be media savvy.
And then our final takeaway message about this is when we talk about public trust in science and scientists, it is very important to keep in mind that we don't necessarily want blind trust in science. We do need a supportive public. We do need people to engage with science. And sometimes it's also good for the public to ask questions and to be somewhat critical about science. That's not a bad thing, as long as they understand how science works, understand the process, and are able to engage. And that's why I was personally so interested in the outcome, that people want scientists to engage, they want to take part. And I think that's an important takeaway from this global study and also for South Africa and Germany. Thank you.